thank you everyone. Welcome to my lecture here. We're going to talk about making games, you know, in especially with a top-down rational approach, trying to produce video games, you know, what it means and everything. So first thing is a few words about me. I'm Stephane Assadourian. I've got 20 years experience in the video games industry. And these are the games I worked on. Welcome. These are the games I worked on, and for the last 3 years, as you can see, I worked at Ubisoft Montreal. For the last 3 years, I've been creating my consulting company, and I'm traveling the world, and I'm helping developers and publishers, also working with investors, finding the right partners, doing consulting in many various forms, especially on producing. So does this work? Yes. Okay, so when I speak about a top-down rational approach, what I want to explain really is that we made games to sell them. So it's a business. I mean, there is like plenty of good reasons to make video games. You want to learn, you want to please your boyfriend, girlfriend, your aunt, your uncle, whatever. But at the end of the day, at some point in your life, when you will be making games, it's because you want to sell them. You want to make a business out of it. So you have to understand we always produce a video game within a business context. And as producers, or even when you're part of a team, you need to understand that sometimes you lose sight of business objectives. Most of my clients actually don't understand the business objectives they have. So they're making games, but they don't really know why or what they need to achieve. So what I'm saying here is that by rationalizing our objective at each stage, we can over-deliver. And this is a bit what I want to talk about. So there is a business, as I said, which is about really understanding the business opportunity. First, can we seize it? Is there a target audience? Who is it? Who's going to play our games? Who's going to want to buy them? Because they're already busy playing other games, which are amazing. And you know that because you're also playing other games, which are amazing. So those are like, you know, business questions that you have. And those business questions actually have an impact on the product that you need to build. So at the product level, you're asking yourself, you know, what product would sell to this audience? Maybe there's a reason nobody did it before. Maybe it's too difficult. And what is the team that I need to actually deliver this? On the other side of the spectrum, you had the team itself. So who will be building the product? You know? So what skills do we need? Do we require any special skills? What should we work on in priority? How do we minimize risks? And yeah, this also has an impact on what the product could be because it needs to stand out from the competition, and you know we need to understand what is our edge. So what I'm trying to tell you here is that the product is kind of trapped between the business and the team, and like there is a lot of constraints that actually will define what is the product you're making. And you don't know what product you're making. You think you know, but you actually don't. And the truth is that there is no product. First, you start with an idea. And this is like something that is coming from your gut or that you heard about or because your friends want to make this game and you kind of feel, yeah, that's right. That would be cool. That would be nice. You have to understand that you're making a business. So when you're in a producer role or when you're like around producers, you need to understand that through all the stages of video game development, you start with this little idea, you have to deliver a pitch, then you should be doing market research, understanding what the business is, what is the competition, why does it make sense or not to make this product, and then, you know, enter conception, deliver a vision, pre-production, production, and closing. And if you look at each stage pretty much, you have to deliver something. So it's quite tricky. I'm going to focus on this lecture just for this part, which is what I call the discover part. The production and the closing part is more like what I call the deliver part. But during the discover part, there is a lot of delivering as well, because you need to test, you need to prototype, you need to validate. So really, it kind of looks like that. It's like very chaotic, and towards the end of delivering, you have a little bit of discovery. And eventually, at the end, you know, you deliver something that you actually set out to deliver. All right. So let's start with the business. So this is something that I call cover to discover. And it's a very simple 4 steps. First, you start with the business context. basically, the question is there a business opportunity? Then, you derive business objectives from that. Can we actually seize this opportunity? And if we did, what would be our objectives? Agreed. What is the product vision? So what is the right product to build to actually satisfy these business objectives? And then, we need to evaluate the risks and make an educated decision on whether or not it's a good idea. Hello and welcome. Okay, so I'm going to talk about this, and I'm going to use Hearthstone as an example because everybody knows Hearthstone, everybody played Hearthstone. You are all very familiar with it. And I think it's a good example to try and see how it works. So if we look at collectible card games back in 2008, this was pretty much the business context. People were saying, yeah, okay, it's a huge market, and in fact, this is how Blizzard discovered their product. It's always the same algorithm. So they're looking at the market and they're seeing, what works and what could be working even better. So they realized that, since 1993, Magic the Gathering is successful. And when they look at the success of Magic the Gathering, they realized actually physical cards are the market because people are buying physical cards. And people totally nerd on it, I was a student back then at this time, and I was buying my Magic cards, and I was trading with friends, and I could feel different kinds of players. Some were collectioners, some were like super hardcore, competitive, and stuff like that. The problem with this game, and that's what they find, is that the game rules are very hard because you can interrupt, you have tokens, and I mean, who has played Magic the Gathering here? Don't be shy. Just you? Okay. You didn't? Okay. So hopefully you know what I'm talking about. But, and so they realize there is an opportunity because there is no clear rival. Nobody is actually willing to get into that market. And even the Magic games on software are not really, really cool. They're like, because the game's rules are very, very difficult. And what they also find is that the market was the physical cards, but the digital cards actually don't feel real. And so this is their business context. So from this, they derive business objectives. And they say, we need to draw in new players. How are we going to do that? What would be the right platform? Can we add an IP on it, which at the time was not even in question. Later on, they added World of Warcraft, the Warcraft IP. But at the beginning, it was not like that. And so they draw on basic requirement of the competition. So visually, it should stand out because otherwise, it's not gonna work. And the gameplay should remain deep, although it should be the game rules should be simplified. So they set out to provide a digital collectible card game experience to players. And they said, our mantras are like, we want our cards to feel real, and we want valuable collectibles. The game should be accessible, and the game should be playing fast. So that's very Hearthstone specific, and I'm using Hearthstone to illustrate, what kind of business objective you can get for your own product. So they derive these kind of production mantras. This is how I call them, and so one of them was immediate fun for the new player, because Magic was not delivering on that. Magic the Gathering is extremely difficult. When you start playing, you kind of want to play, but it feels really, really hard. You have to learn the rules. You have friends to teach you the rules. It's a bit complex, and it can be frustrating. So by setting on an objective which says immediate fun for the new player, all their design decision, all their marketing decision, everything that they display is actually oriented, and it helps them. It's a really good constraint for creativity. Also, they wanted non-competitive player to strive. They wanted the game to play really, really fast. And one of the aspects that is really interesting is they wanted the digital cards to feel real and valuable because they understood the market was not about the game, it was about the cards. And then another one that I really like is they say everyone is a designer. This is for the producer a good way to actually hire people and build a team. So the producer mindset, really, when you have this kind of business objective, is to understand that the business is not about the features, it's about the results themselves. So you don't tell the team, what they should be doing. You don't micromanage people. You tell them the larger goal. What you need to accomplish, and you cannot talk about what you need to accomplish if you don't know what the business objectives are. Hello. So once you have your business objective, I really strongly recommend that you display them in the studio. Everybody, when you work, when you're a programmer, animator, a level designer, if you look at, games should be, the game should play fast, every non-competitive player should strive, you don't work in the same way that if you don't see these messages. And so it's very, very important that it helps align the team. And you have to remember, this project only exists because you need to satisfy these objectives. Otherwise, there is no reason to make this project. So the good news is that you can, start with a concept, you can do your market research, you can try to validate it. And if it doesn't work, if you realize this is not a good idea, you didn't spend too much money, and you can iterate on a new concept. And it's okay to do that. It's really, really good to do that, actually. So if we go back to our idea, being trapped between business and the team, well, as we work and as we understand our market and as we understand how it's working, it grows into a vision. And this vision is is what I'm going to talk about next. So the product vision is, how do we go from business to product? And I want to talk about the role of a producer during the conception phase. So what we hear a lot is, the creative lead is in charge of connecting the vision and business. Usually you call them product owners. But really, what is the vision? I have a lot of questions like that, and why does it matter for the producer? Because you're not responsible for it, somebody else is responsible for it, so why should I be doing during the conception phase? So for me, the vision, is split into different items. So this is you can add more to that, but this is a good first draft, I would say. So you have the pillars, the USP, the unique selling points. You have the fantasy, the character, the story, game structure, the core gameplay loop, elements of player's experience. All of these items are actually business items. All of these items connect to whatever business context, whatever. It's okay, it's not for me, I'm fine. Whatever your business is set out to do, you really need to understand that all of this will have to be designed and thought of as fitting the business. And in fact, having said that, you can actually split these items into two categories. Some of them are more business-oriented, some of them are more questions for the team. So the pillars and the USPs, typically, they are here to provide answers for the business. Because you have those business constraints, you need to actually say, yeah, but if we make this game or this kind of concept, this satisfies that. But while we do that, it raises a lot of questions for the team. Then, what are the characters? What is the story? Why is there even a story? Do we do that? Are we narrative? Are we not narrative? What is the core gameplay loop that supports these USPs better? So this is kind of two different high-level categories of items. So as you iterate on that and you're building the vision, you're trying to grow this eye in the middle, you're trying to answer the business, provide answers for the business, and it raises questions for the team. You will work on every item individually. And hopefully this eye, as you turn around, this eye is growing and your vision is getting better. But you have to remember, the story, for instance, is not just any story. It's a story written because you have to fit a business. The characters are designed in the same way. The fantasy itself, are we set in Africa? Are we set in Armenia? Are we set in the Crusades times? Where are we? Is it Norse mythology? What is it? Who is the player? Who are we saying? What are we telling the players they're gonna play as? This is all because there is a business behind it. So I really stress that. I don't want to tell you that this kills creativity. It's the other way around. Because there is so many constraints, you can be extremely creative, and because these constraints create a direction for you, it will help you create and be more and more creative. So if we look at this in the Hearthstone context, providing answers for the business, one of them, I took two different things, but there are a billion others, but they really wanted to have a sense of feeling for the digital cards. So really, they were like, how can we achieve the sense of feeling of digital cards, of physical cards, when we have actually only digital cards? So, hello, welcome. And what kind of questions did he raise for the team? So, for instance, digital cards, they created this kind of cards. And it's interesting because if you look at the description, it says players only have 15 seconds to take their turns. So when you play a real game of Magic, it would be really annoying to do that, because suddenly someone has to start a timer and say, yeah, it's 10 seconds, you have 5 seconds left, blah, blah, blah. When you're in the digital world, it's super easy, because you can make the rules, you have a timer of 15 seconds, it goes faster, and you feel with your mouse and keyboard, you feel the stress of playing faster. So this is one way they designed the game so that it actually fits this business objective. Another card that I saw and I liked was this one: copy 2 cards in your opponent's deck and add them to your hand. So that's easier to do in a digital world than in a physical world. In the physical world, what happens is you have to go through the entire deck of your opponent, you have to take the cards, maybe you have to have the same cards already, but you don't know what your opponent is playing, so you have to have all the cards. It doesn't make any sense. You cannot play the physical game with these kind of cards. So they extended the kind of opportunities that they had in terms of gameplay to make the gameplay and design the game in a deeper way, because they wanted, not just because they have these crazy ideas and they're really, really creative, because their creativity was directed towards fitting this very specific business objective, giving a sense of feeling to the digital cards. Now the questions for the team, for instance, building a gameplay prototype, how are we going to achieve this? So the team is like, yeah, we need to build a prototype, understand exactly what's going on. Well, it's not a secret, but you might know that they started with a Flash prototype. Very, very fast, and they could experiment really quickly about what are the cards, how do we play, what is the attack, defense, do we even have that? And also they try to understand the business objectives. How can we make the game faster? How can we make it so that the young players thrive, and even if they're not professional? So it has to remain accessible while staying deep. So there's a bunch of questions for a team in a full uncertainty environment, which is what any creative team is in. So the first aspect of a producer is how to maximize the team's output. And basically, the way to do that is that you need to make sure that everybody contributes to the vision. So you need to facilitate communication, you need to remove blockers for the team. This is like basic Scrum stuff. Monitor the vision progress. You'd be surprised how many people don't know how to do that. And then one of the very important items is challenge the vision, which is on its own a whole category of problems. So I like to think that you should always have the audience in mind in order to rationalize any kind of idea that comes to you. You must capture the business opportunity. You must demand to have explicit USPs. Unique selling points are the keys because they encapsulate your business case. Why are we going to sell? Why is it about our game that makes it so appealing and so different from the competition that people will actually stop playing whatever they're playing to actually buy our game and play our game? And then demand to have branded pillars. So I'm going to talk about that a bit more. So you can find these 2 items again, like the business items from the vision. They are here. So if we look at the business, very, very simple phase diagram. We have a business opportunity, then we need to craft a product, and then we need to release this experience on the market. But if you look deeper into this diagram, what you see is that there are like 2 types of scope. First, there's the vertical slice scope, kind of, when you are early on and you need to understand where to stop and where to draw the line of what the experience could be. And then once you've done that and you validated it, whether you're a free-to-play game or premium game or whatever, you need to craft the product itself and understand what the scope will be, the entire scope of the experience. So the scope is crucial. And these are a few reasons why it's crucial. It's because, first, it is the center of all the dependencies. It impacts your budget, your release date, your pricing, your business objective, your team roster. It impacts everything. So controlling the scope is essential. It prevents you from gigantic feature creeping, which is what I see everywhere. And gigantic feature creeping means you're spending a lot of money creating assets you don't know that you need. And you don't need to do that. You need to be clever about how you actually build this. Hello, welcome. So it's the heart of what players will be able to experience. So controlling the scope basically has a direct impact on what your product is. It's linked to the strategy of the product, whether you go early access, you create DLC, content update for the free-to-play case, SIP console. It's everything, it's everywhere. The other thing is it forces you to organize the quantity of content into core systems, which is a very important point. I'm going to talk about this a bit more in a few minutes. And then you can delegate ownership of core systems to people who will actually build it. So it already has items, when you're controlling the scope, you can really easily understand that you already have elements of answers on how to organize your team to actually build this product. So the producer basically is maintaining the scope in a state that allows to fulfill the current objectives, business objectives, and also remains feasible for the current team. So again, you have this idea of the product being trapped between the business on one side and the team on the other side. And the team is really linked to the feasibility itself. Can we actually build it? And when you're over-scoping, which always happens, so you have to be vigilant because it will happen to you too. You know, I know some people here are laughing because they know what I'm talking about. You fall into gigantic feature creeping, and a good example of that is, you know, you burn the gate, you think your conception is done, you go into pre-production, you think your vertical slice is cool, you go into production, you start building assets, and 6 months down the line, you're asking yourself, shall we do a loot system or not? And there is no good answer. You don't know because the concept is not finished. And if you don't understand what business you're evolving and tapping into, then you won't be able to answer it. So what happens when you're overscoping, you also you can't ship on time and you have like big business issues. So controlling the scope is really key. And it is really about this loop I've talked about. This is the essence of the work you need to do as a producer. Understand where to maintain the scope and you know how to do about it. So in order to maintain the scope, you need to understand how to challenge the ideas. And challenging the scope is a crucial tool for delivering, which is what I'm going to talk about. So basically, when new ideas come in, and we have this fantastic PowerPoint animation, when new ideas come in, you have to have a dual mindset. You have to split your mind into two kind of different states. One, which is more business-oriented, where you have to be stubborn. You have to be almost intolerant, meaning by that you cannot accept any kind of giving away. Yeah, the business objectives are what they are, and you should not change them. The business changes, and you need to adapt them. But whatever idea comes, you know, you need to really understand that this is not acceptable because the business rejects it. I'm going to dig more into that in a few minutes. And on the other side, you have to remain flexible for whatever idea the team comes up with. So on one hand, you have to be flexible and say, yeah, okay, yeah, this could be cool. How do you see it? How would you do that? You know, and keep in mind on the other side of your own brain that, you know, okay, this doesn't work because the business said that. This doesn't work because this is not good enough. This is actually really, really good because it will help us execute this on the business side and stand out. So, to challenge the scope, there are like two angles. One of them is the business angle. So the only question you need to ask yourself is it what our audience wants? And obviously from that point on, you realize that if you don't know who your players are, you cannot actually build anything that they will buy. So the first step in market research is to understand who are your players. So once you know who are your players, is it what they want? So basic questions that you should ask when a new idea comes in, when you know in your team somebody said, hey, what if we do that? Or like I saw a lot in my career, a producer comes on the Monday morning and said, I saw a movie yesterday. And this is bad news because when producers see movies on Sundays, on the Monday they come and they have new ideas and they say, yeah, what if we change this? What if we change that? Some of these ideas would be good, potentially. So you need a way to rationalize it and you need a way to challenge it properly. So one of the ideas that say, okay, is it what our audience wants? Maybe, you know, if we add this, we can change the price of our product because the scope would be bigger, but why not? It could be a thing. Then you will have to ask yourself the other side of the question with the team, which we'll get to in a minute. You need to check the content using your USPs. Is it actually helping us to stand out? You know, is it a unique selling point? Is it feeding into our unique selling point? Or you can use any of your production mantras that we saw before. So in the case of Hearthstone, you know, you can ask yourself, does it allow non-competitive players to strive? Is this idea good enough that, you know, it will help us make our cards feel real? You know, does it help make the game play fast or faster? You know, will this direction make the game immediately fun for players? And anything that doesn't actually satisfy that doesn't score many points. Doesn't mean that you need to reject the idea because maybe it's super easy to do. You can prototype it in 10 minutes and then see the result and validate and say yes. But you shouldn't be doing or spending time or energy on stuff that you know are not going to actually help you build a business. The other aspect is the feasibility angle. So when you come from the team side, basically the only question you need to ask yourself is, can we actually build this? And it's really a trade-off between ambition and feasibility. So you can be flexible there and, basically ask yourself, is it actually feasible with the current team? So they ask you, can we do this kind of the loot system, for instance? Okay, so how long would it take, does it fit in our current plan? Yeah, we have a milestone, so maybe later, this kind of stuff. And, how important would we rate it? So you can ask the people who have this idea, to look at the list of systems and features and say, what is the priority of this according to you? Also ask yourself, do I need to grow the team? Is this linked to special skills that we don't have yet in the team? Because if it is, it's going to be a problem. So probably you should reject the idea. Maybe it's for the next game, or for a DLC, or whatever. So I want to run through, this is something that I give in workshops, by the way. It's an interesting exercise because it helps you understand, one side of your brain is set on the business, the other side is set on the team in the feasibility itself. So if I was to ask you, Hearthstone crazy idea number 1, let's make a 5 versus 5 mode. Hearthstone is 1 versus 1, it's player versus player. Let's make a 5 versus 5 mode. So you don't know, I don't know if it's a good idea or not. They didn't do it yet. So probably it's not a good idea if we trust Blizzard, which we do. But let's look at it as an example. So on the business side, you can ask yourself, is it really what the players want? Does it help make the game play fast? Well, probably not, because you have to wait for 3 other players now. It's not only you and someone else, it's 3 other guys. So that's already a minus point. It doesn't seem to be like a good idea. Does it help make our cards feel real? Not really. It doesn't make them feel less real, but it doesn't add anything to it. So you can see that you can already build a minus, plus, or neutral kind of rating system on each of these ideas by using these questions. And then on the feasibility side, can we actually build it? Hello. Hi. Can we actually build it? So, could it fit in our current plan? How long would it take? How important is this system? Do I need to grow the team for that? Do we need more network engineers or whatever? Crazy idea number 2. An adventure system to introduce new cards pack. So this is probably a good idea because that's what eventually they did release as a content update. But it was not originally in the plan because their game was not about making the player feel like he's part of an adventure. Their initial idea was to tap into the market of being a collectible card game and therefore, hello, welcome, and therefore introducing a new product that will actually challenge Magic the Gathering. Magic the Gathering doesn't have any adventure system. It suggests an adventure. There is a lore, there is a story to it, to the heroes and the creatures, but that's not really the reason why people play it. Some of them play it for that, but that's not really why. So they decided probably early on that this adventure system would be better off as a content update. And they sorted it out like that because it was actually fitting the plan. But they didn't really have time. It was like ranking lower in priority, so they didn't do it. Crazy idea number 3, a story mode with a 3D avatar doing missions in an open world. So yeah, I hear you laugh because it's like, what the fuck is this? And it's exactly that. What the fuck is this? They didn't do it, and it's probably a bad idea to do it. And if you look at the questions suggested by the rational approach I'm suggesting to you, you can see that it's going to be really difficult. We don't have, they do have the tech to do 3D avatar doing missions in an open world. They have World of Warcraft, and it fits the IP, so why not? They could be doing it. But in your own scale, you don't feel the players are playing Hearthstone to actually be in an open world, and they don't need daily missions to go outside in the world wandering on their mount or whatever and do crazy things because they already do it in World of Warcraft. So that's really hopefully giving you an idea on how you should split your mind in two and understand what side is the business, the other side is the feasibility and what the team can deliver, and how to sort out the ideas and feel more confident into building this kind of direction and this kind of leadership into your projects. So let's talk about the role of producer in pre-production. How do we shape the product? So we have business objectives, as we saw. We have some kind of game scope now because we are managing it more or less. We're trying to make sure that it doesn't go overboard. Another role of what we're doing is to deconstruct the vision into core systems. That's what you should be doing in pre-production. So why core systems? Because the game is first a set of systems. And they should be working together really, really well. And the final product is being built by improving each of these systems. Also because we will organize the team as producers around these systems. So examples of systems are like fight system, dialogue system, economic system, etc., etc. Of course, UI, physics, sound, all of these, they're not systems, they're just technology bits. So if we look at Hearthstone, what are the core systems from the player's perspective? Again, super powerful PowerPoint animation. These are kind of a list of the system that they had. It's not exhaustive, there's more to it. But they have a fight system, obviously. They have a deck building system, they have communication system, because you can talk to other players. And as you can see, communication is interesting. The goal is players can communicate with each other. And the way they implemented it is very, 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 very basic compared to Mass Effect dialogue system, for instance, where it's very, very, very complex because it's not the same product and it doesn't answer the same business questions. Matchmaking, obviously, adventure, as we talked about. Idle, when the other player is playing, what are we doing? They needed a system for that, so you can click on the little things and it's funny, for instance. They actually spent time developing this. Not so long, but still they did. Buying cards, obviously, very, very core to the experience. So these are the list of the systems. So once you have that, again, something that I give in a workshop, is that you make a two-column table where you list your core systems, and on the other side, you start to describe it at very high level and you start to think about the features, high-level features that you would need for that system. So if you look at the fight system, the basic idea is players can play a full game and win, which means also lose. So you have some kind of mechanics already, you have some kind of win-lose mechanics and fighting mechanics. So one of the features is like distribute cards. The players can draw, select, play cards. There is a timer, damage management, mana management, graveyard mechanics, hero action, and so on and so forth. So you do that for all of these systems, deck building, create, edit, delete decks, move cards. Usually you use verbs because they're like functions in the code. And that really helps you because you start to understand, what is the scope of each system, and new ideas come in as you do these lists. And that's where you need to go back to what I said, between making sure that you have the business on one side and the feasibility on the other side. So once you have these core systems, you make categories of it. So one of them is the back-end aspect of the game. We have matchmaking, account sign-in, fraud tolerance, purchasing cards. How do we talk with financial services? Another aspect is the gameplay itself, so the fight, idle, communication, whatever happens in the game. The card collection is very important as well because it's really, really servicing the business as well. So deck building, the player should be able to build their decks. That's the core of the collectible card game experience. And buying cards, obviously. And kind of a mission system or mission category where you have adventure rewards, adventure progress, daily missions and stuff like that. But the question is, who will build this? Again, so what skills do we need? How do we minimize the risk? What should we work on in priority? So you need to analyze the risk and their nature. So I'm getting to the fourth part of this algorithm, the cover algorithm that I'm talking about, and it's evaluating the risks. And I'm going to talk about the top risk number 2, which I saw a lot, and I want you to consider it as a time bomb in your project because it will impact the team's velocity a lot. And if you cannot see them, you will under-deliver. I'm talking about dependencies. So each of these core systems and each of these categories, as you can see, have dependencies. One of them, for instance, is buying cards here. Buying cards. So one aspect of it is the back-end aspect. The other aspect is the front-end aspect. How do we present it to the players, and how efficient should it be on the back-end and so on. So this is really important. If you don't see this, you're going to have problems because there is an order of priority in the way you're going to have to deliver that. And the bad news is that your project is filled with those dependencies. They're not invisible. You really have to look at them. But this is really core of the business and the job of the producer is understanding that the dependencies of these systems are really, really important. So you will have to pick which one we do first. So I suggest you do the highest risks first. So you need to rank them in terms of risk. Up to what point do we do them? So when do we stop? And who will work on it? Maybe there's somebody in a super programmer in the team that starts to be a bottleneck because he's working on everything, and your only solution to the problems is to give it to them. And at some point, they have too much work. So do we need to hire someone? And it's always this kind of juggle in mechanics. So then you will need to rank the systems once you have that. Following the business objectives. And I chose to do it like that. Priority number 1, we would deliver first the fight, because the fight is the core of the system. Like if there is no fight, there is no game in Hearthstone. Buy cards as well, because this is something we want to make sure that players can actually interact with as the game comes out. So this is super important. Then, deck building, matchmaking, idle communication. And I put adventure in priority number 4, but you can do the exercise in your head to actually put it priority number 1 and say, this product is about having the players live an adventure in a Warcraft world, and what would it be? And how would it impact the fight and the buy card stuff? What kind of team would you need if you were to deliver that first? And so on. And you can see, like, looking at articles about how they did Hearthstone, that it was pretty clear that they didn't have time to actually put the adventure first. They didn't want to either. Another risk, which is the top risk number 1, is really, really surprising because it's ultra simple to do. It requires an understanding of what the project needs. And if you cannot draw this diagram, your organization is clearly sub-efficient. And I'm talking about organigrams. It's very simple to do. And most people, I've never seen a client do that for me. So each time I ask for organigrams, they say, yeah, we'll give it to you, and they never do. And it's quite easy, really. It's understanding who does what. And even if you're 5 people, 10 people, 15 people in your team, and you're rather indie, and a lot of people are doing different things, you still need to, encapsulate how, they can act on building the product. And the beauty of this is you can see at the team's level that we use the core systems to actually segment every part of the team and organize the team in the most efficient way. So this is my proposal for Hearthstone. I never worked on Hearthstone, but this is how I would do it as a producer. I would make sure I have a backend team, I have a gameplay team, a deck building team, somebody who actually focus on presentation team, focus on building the most beautiful cards. And the reason for that is that one of my USP and requirement for business is that the card and the game is beautiful. So I should have the right resources for that. So this is what this illustrates. So I think I'm on time, and I'm going to talk about the takeaways now, what we've learned. So first, producer must feel comfortable with uncertainty. And this is because you have to organize a team of people who have to feel comfortable with uncertainty. So if you yourself don't feel comfortable with that, then you're going to have a hard time making sure that people are okay not knowing, people are okay not being certain of everything. The other thing to remember is this cover to discover. Understand the context, drive business objectives, build a product vision around it, and then evaluate the risks. Also, very important, pillars and USP must connect with the right audience. So that's really on the business side, and you should use them when you're challenging the vision and the scope. That's something that I kind of say in all my lectures, but you need a vision to execute, because I see that too often. People go into pre-production and even into production without a vision, and then they don't understand what's going on and why it doesn't work. So really, I'm serious about this. Don't go finish the conception. Make sure you have a really fully formed concept, that your vision is good enough, that you understand your audience, the players, and what are your USPs and pillars. Really important as well to focus on each gate. At each stage you want a validation gate. You want to make sure that you don't go too fast. So the conception gate is where you actually evaluate the vision and how good it matches the business, and why the team is the right team to build this product. This is one of the most important gates. Then the pre-production, where you actually have a vertical slice of some kind of fully fledged experience, where you demonstrate this, you talk to publishers and stuff like that, and also the production where you deliver the final stage. And this is because you need support through uncertainty, as I said before. So for me, what makes a pro producer is really when you understand that you have to lead your team to build a product that best fulfills your business objectives. And really keep in mind that business aspect, because otherwise you're going to learn a lot, but you're going to be really floating in an era where you can't really sustain yourself and you can't really deliver other games of quality to other players. And we need your games, and I'm sure you can deliver a lot of really good games, because I see a lot of talent in Armenia. So, Chanel Tune. So we have some time for questions, I think.
We have time, like 5 minutes.
5 minutes, okay. Yes.
Hey, thank you for coming first. Really good. I wanted to ask if you have a business idea that worked at the time that we started. Let's talk about a bigger project. It was really fitting and stuff, but when you started making it, you speak up. Okay. You started the project that was fitting the business idea at that time. You're like halfway through. You already have prototypes. You already have like the rough game. And then suddenly the market totally shifts, and basically that business idea that you had and what you built already, like, what do? Do you discard the game? Do you change your vision?
Very good question. Thank you, bye. Very good question. Yeah, that happens sometimes. Didn't happen to me, but yes, you have, this case is really, really important. I'm really happy you asked that question because you have to be stubborn on the business, but the business changes. And so at some point, yeah, you can have this really wonderful idea, and then, it becomes a trend and everybody does that because everybody has identified the same thing. Yet you can see that first it validates your approach because you're like, okay, I'm not the only one who thought of that. The Switch is a good example because it brings up a lot of new kind of retro game, arcade game back to the market. And it's not something that we anticipated. So you have two choices basically. You can actually trash your idea and say, okay, I'm never gonna be able to compete with those other products. Or you can say, let's look at these products, let's look at what they're doing, let's look at what is good about it and what is wrong about it, and let's see if we can adjust our vision slightly to actually match a new business opportunity that you would have identified. So that's roughly what I would do. But it's really difficult because it's a bit unfair as well. There's an element of luck, but you have to really adjust and make sure that you can do it. So yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome. No questions? Yeah, just one.
Okay, please
Last one.
Okay. Best game you've played in the last couple of years and why?
The best game I've played in the last couple of years and why?
Why it was just
I don't play too many games. I don't have time because I'm busy making them. So, but
just an example.
yeah. I think Breath of the Wild is a really good example. It's just amazing what they created, and also it tells you the efficiency of these teams at Nintendo, because first it's a masterpiece, and in terms of production, it's really, really a challenging thing. Like they must have had a tons of people working on that. So yeah, I would just name that. But there is like so many others. Yeah. Thank you very much. Thank you.